What's up, guys? Welcome to the Saturday Show. Now on Saturdays, I like to go back through the week of Newswave, just see what you guys had to say based on the different topics that we talked about throughout the week. It's a good way also to get caught up if you missed a day, and then just see what everyone was kind of talking about throughout in the comments. It's a lot of fun. We're going to start with a couple of things. One, there is a GameStop unboxing video going up around 2 o'clock today, actually. So if you enjoy those, just keep an eye out for it. It's an interesting one where I ordered some of the more expensive retro games that were available at the time on their website, just to see what they send me, if they send me complete copies of like disc-based games or if the cartridges were okay. It was an interesting thing to see. Check it out like 2 p.m. Eastern time this afternoon. And I'm also going to start with a little bit of quick news that has to do with Halo Infinite. Now, this game is still kind of a mystery to us. We do know they're using a brand new engine, though. Now, according to Bonnie Ross, who actually had a full interview with Ryan McCaffrey at IGN, they had been using the same engine for the most part, that they did some changes and iterations to for about the last 18 years. Basically, all of Halo, pretty much. And doing this Slipspace engine is the biggest investment that 343 has ever made, according to her. And that's one of the reasons we're not seeing a Halo game 3 years after Halo 5. They are taking the extra time to make what is sounding like a ridiculous Halo game. Now, there have been some rumors come out that it's going to have like RPG elements kind of attached to it, for example. And we really don't know much else outside of that. All we know right now is that Slipspace engine is really going to be something special when they show it, and it seems like they're going to be showing it this E3, at least to some degree. I don't know if it's a 2019 game. I think it's a launch game for the Xbox Scarlet, as people have also rumored that. So it's possible it could be cross-gen, where it'll be on the Xbox One and then the Scarlet, or maybe it's just a straight-up Scarlet game. It's hard to say. I could see it through streaming services, though, so maybe with all the rumors about streaming on the Switch, maybe you can play Halo on the Switch through Game Pass at one point in time down the road. Either way, interesting stuff. That Slipspace engine is going to be the big thing to keep an eye on. And starting the week on Monday, we talked about Nintendo explaining the reasoning they ended their creators program, which mostly had to do with Nintendo realizing it was free advertising for their products. We also saw a mystery listing appear on Amazon from Bethesda. James says, "I'm really glad they stopped their creators program. It really didn't help give Nintendo a good relationship with a lot of other YouTubers/streamers. This is really going to help Nintendo, especially with such a good 2019 lineup. Now, if only they made strides on the online service as well. Only time will tell, I guess." Yeah, that online service does need some work. I feel like they'll continue working with it, and now that we hear that Nintendo and Microsoft are kind of buddying up with all these rumors, and maybe we'll see that kind of actually turn into something this year. Who knows? Maybe Xbox Live becomes the thing on Nintendo's platform. Who knows? You know, you never know going forward. Nintendo, the one thing they definitely know how to do is make games. The thing they have a really hard time with, so if they have their strengths and weaknesses, their strengths obviously is building really good games that will sell your hardware no matter what. It comes down to the online service that they really seem to struggle with overall. I'm glad they got rid of that creators program, because it really was affecting YouTubers and streamers actually kind of discussing, talking about, showing off games, because Nintendo would just claim videos no matter what with just gameplay footage, which wasn't something that you had seen with other companies as much as Nintendo. And most people didn't want to try to fight it, go to court or anything like that, because no one really wants to test fair use outside of just saying fair use. Most people don't want to actually go to court and see if gameplay would hold up as fair use with commentary. No one really wants to roll the dice there, because right now it's kind of an understanding between game developers and publishers and streamers and people on YouTube that it's free advertising for the publisher and the developer. In fact, it's one of the best ways to advertise now. TV is very expensive, but hey, a streamer, they could pull thousands of people and show their own unique experience with a game and might actually sell some copies that way. So it's more of an understanding. No one really wants to test it, and it's good to see Nintendo kind of backs off on that, lets people kind of help advertise the games for them. Tuesday, we saw Anthem struggle badly in the UK sales charts, moving half of what Mass Effect Andromeda did in its opening week, and a quarter of what Destiny 2 sold. We also saw Capcom announce dates for the Resident Evil games going to Switch, with the physical copy of Origins only having Resident Evil 0 on the cart, with Resident Evil HD being a download code. MK says, "Regarding Anthem, what Destiny taught me is that those kind of games should be bought after about 1 year of original release. You get it much cheaper with all added content, with bugs ironed out." You're not at all wrong about that, actually. I mean, if you think about it, Destiny 2 at one point was free. Like, they were just giving it away. If you had like a Battle.net account, congratulations, you own Destiny 2. Whether you wanted to or not, it's in your library. Go ahead and download it. Whereas, months and months, I guess a year prior, we were buying it for $60, then the downloadable content gets patched on, and these games as a service, I think, have made people a bit more timid about buying them day one, unless it's something ridiculous. If it's a new IP like an Anthem, I see people saying, maybe I'll wait, because the game will probably drop in price. And you know what? I've thought about it more and more. Some of these games would probably be better off just being free to play. Like, they release without a price tag. You get a ridiculous amount of people playing, like Apex Legends, and then you obviously have some kind of microtransaction, or you just tack on more content as you go forward. Maybe you have a subscription service. I think the problem we're having right now is that $60 price tag is still in the way, and these developers, or publishers, I should say, haven't moved past that. They want that MMO RPG experience, like the free-to-play ones, but they want you to pay to enter into them and then continue paying in other forms too. So until that $60 barrier comes down, which I think will actually start to come down more and more going into next generation, believe it or not, it's still going to be an issue, and people won't just, there are other things to play. Apex Legends is free, and that was really popular and taking over on EA side. So, it's funny because we had a situation where Battlefield, remember, ran over Titanfall 2, one of Respawn's games. Now it looks like Respawn's game, Apex Legends, is kind of running over Anthem right now. Dude says, didn't Sega already release a Genesis Classic console years before Nintendo did the NES Classic? Yeah, technically they did, but remember, the reason people are more excited about this one coming up is because we expect it to be more quality than what AtGames did, because for the longest time, people had no confidence in Sega's their plug-and-play systems, because AtGames was handling them, emulation was poor, the hardware was cheap, there was no real quality control, and now Sega kind of dumped them, and they actually even delayed their Genesis Mini because of that. So they kind of wanted to push it back and say, we want to do some quality. It worked for Nintendo. Didn't really work for Sony because they did. Okay, so Sony had good hardware. Like the hardware itself was really nice. Emulation was really bad. They didn't hit that correctly at all. So if the emulation was better and the game selection was better on the PlayStation, that probably would have been a hit. It really would have been. So I'm hoping that Sega sits back and says, okay, we're gonna get the games right, we're gonna get the hardware right, and then we're gonna sell this thing like crazy. Because let's be honest. Most of us would buy a Genesis Mini if the hardware was really good and the game selection was good. So I'm holding out hope that they're going to show us at the end of this month, actually, right at the end, Sega Fest takes place, and I'm hoping they show off a Sega Genesis Mini that is just awesome. We'll see. Wednesday, we talked about THQ Nordic coming under fire from the media after holding an AMA on 8chan. The image board has a bad reputation online that made the idea seem really weird to do in the first place, considering they could have held the same AMA on their Twitter account if they wanted to and avoided an internet meltdown. Chris says, if you call 8chan tainted, then YouTube and Twitter is the same. You're just another person who didn't know what 8chan was until this and assumes the worst. So the thing about this situation, which was very interesting to me, was that 8chan doesn't have a good reputation online. Technically, Twitter and YouTube obviously have a better reputation, but you're not wrong when you say parts of Twitter and YouTube are tainted. You're right about that. The difference there is public perception, and the way I was talking about the situation, as opposed to just saying 8chan is the worst place in the world, because I don't really know what 8chan really was until then, and I had to do some research on it, which is something the PR person at THQ Nordic probably should have done, because the idea of PR or public relations is to be able to predict and judge what the best thing is for a politically correct company, or one that wants to appear that way, to present to the public, so that there's not something that took place, this PR nightmare that took place, this firestorm. You're supposed to be able to avoid that. Instead, they created it. Usually, the PR company is supposed, or the PR part of the company is supposed to be able to diffuse those situations. Instead, they created it. So the whole point of that conversation that took place there was to show why it was a bad PR move to do what they did. It was definitely a big mistake, and you can kind of tell because even the developers were on record saying that they were embarrassed about it, or it actually affected them in a way. And once the PR company within the PR agency within their company starts messing with the developer side, which is something I was a bit concerned about, because THQ Nordic's been on a roll. I've been really enjoying what they've been doing, and I've been having a lot of fun following them, which is one of the reasons we actually talked about them here. It's because we talk about them all the time, because they keep acquiring older stuff and they put them out straight up for a fee and you buy it. There's none of this microtransaction madness or anything going on, live service stuff. Is because we've covered them so much. So the idea here was it a bad PR move? Was it a PR mistake? I think most people agree that it was, whether you like 8chan or not. I think most people, even on 8chan, were probably confused as to why they were doing it. But yeah, it was a bad PR move, like straight up. In fact, if I looked around, most people thought that as well. So not necessarily if you like 8chan or not, but you kind of look at it and you go, would I have gone into my boss's office and said this would be a great idea for our large company to have an AMA on 8chan? That's why I posed that question. Would you do that at your job if your entire job depended on something like that? Would you say, yeah, let's go have an AMA on 8chan? Thursday, we saw Capcom reveal the prices for the Resident Evil games for Switch that appear to be higher than other platforms' versions of the games. We also saw a discovery that shows the Switch being able to identify analog triggers in certain games. Doug Trace says, analog triggers make sense for Xbox Live games. It was one of my main concerns for how some of those games would be playable on Switch. See, Doug is on top of it here because, wait a minute. There are these rumors about Xbox games showing up, and my thought as well is, well, the Xbox does rely on their analog triggers quite a bit, so how would they make that work? Well, here's Trials at least being able to identify analog triggers in some way, right, in some facet where they have the right stick, paired with that trigger on the top and everything. But the point here is, okay, if they can actually make that work, then yeah, the Switch can probably identify it, but of course it's going to go back to the streaming service as well. However, Microsoft is putting out these controllers that pair with your phone. So could they put out a controller that you would buy for your Switch that would be like an Xbox controller that pairs up through Bluetooth? Maybe. I mean, some third-party companies have basically made look-alike Xbox controllers at this point. So yeah, I mean, that could happen. Microsoft and Nintendo could actually put out a controller that basically is an Xbox controller that you get for your Switch, and it syncs up and you use it. Now, what about handheld mode with Joy-Con controllers? That's a whole other thing. Would they release new Joy-Con controllers that have analog triggers? Maybe. I mean, games like Forza would be a weird thing to figure out unless they just have you use that analog stick. But that was something I thought about as well, Doug, and that's a good thing to point out because I think the Switch can identify analog triggers, and I think it's something we might actually see in an accessory coming up. Finally, on Friday, we saw Horizon Zero Dawn cross 10 million copies sold, which is weird since single-player games don't sell anymore according to bigger third-party companies. Then we also saw an interesting listing for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Remastered, but it could just be the campaign itself. ADR says, Horizon Zero Dawn is one of the best games I've ever played. The attention to detail was very evident, and I do not want Guerrilla Games to rush. Red Dead Redemption 2 was 8 years after the original, and it is epic. So I do think Guerrilla Games is probably working on the next Horizon Zero Dawn for the launch of the PlayStation 5. That's just what I think is happening because they were ramping up production and staffing and buildings and everything for where they're working. I think they're going to pretty much smash right into the PlayStation 5 launch with the next Horizon Zero Dawn. And what a great time in gaming that was right there, right? Because you had Horizon Zero Dawn, then days later, right, we get the launch of the Switch and we get Breath of the Wild to come out. It was two really good games, and I see the debate still raging on Horizon Zero Dawn versus Breath of the Wild. I still lean kind of towards Breath of the Wild overall, but Horizon Zero Dawn, fantastic game, and it was really cool to see that do 10 million copies because we are in a time, we just talked about Anthem, where live services are what a lot of these companies are leaning into. So anytime I see a single-player game like that, like a Kingdom Hearts, right, sell, Resident Evil 2, anytime I see a single-player game sell really well, I think people should make mention of it. I think they should celebrate it because it sadly is something that is kind of going away right now. Amy Hennig even talked about in an interview that, I mean, a pitch like the original Uncharted nowadays won't work with most third-party companies, and even some of the first-party companies like Microsoft are also leaning away from those type of games. So it's kind of a shame. The Gravity Shifter says, let Modern Warfare Remastered be a testament to always have cautious optimism, knowing Activision's track record, a MW2 Remastered will very likely suffer the same fate, which saddens me because I wouldn't be against a WAW or Black Ops 1 Remastered. So, yeah, like a World at War or a Black Ops 1 Remastered would be cool, but you're right when you say we should be careful or tentative about Activision and these things. Remember, they added microtransactions, all kind of stuff into Modern Warfare Remastered 1's multiplayer. However, this would only be the campaign, so I try to figure out how they would inject microtransactions, loot boxes, etc. into it. I don't doubt that they could. They could probably figure something out because it's Activision. I think this will probably be a pre-order bonus and then it later sold on the shop. And I don't know how they would add that stuff into a campaign. If they did the multiplayer, then that's easy. Oh, they could do that no sweat. The campaign is the thing that's throwing myself and a lot of people off Again, it's probably not like a big deal if they're doing. It's probably more of a throwaway thing that they're just kind of tacking on. Like what we got Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered as kind of like a pre-order bonus for Odyssey, which was weird, but yeah, that was a thing. Or the Season Pass, I'm sorry. But that was a thing. So I'm hoping this is just the campaign. They put it out there like, hey, if you like the campaign, you want it to be all nice and textured up in 4K, or maybe it's also on the Switch, for portable use, you can just buy it straight up and play it, or you got to pre-order Modern Warfare 4. We'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for the Saturday show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys give the video a like if you liked it, dislike if not. What do you think about all the stuff we talked about today, whether it's Halo Infinite's Slipspace engine? What do you think is going to be the change there? What do you think is going to be different about this Halo? I'm really looking forward to it because it sounds like they're going to spend like 4 or 5 years on this thing, and I'm hoping that means an amazing Halo experience is going to be there. Also, what do you think about Anthem struggles and Resident Evil on the Switch being a bit higher in price, and of course the split on the physical copy of digital and physical? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.